Battle Royales just keep coming out, and I know that while many get super hyped up about new BRs, a massive amount of other people are also really sick of them. This generally stems from the feeling that many of them don't have too much to make them stand out, and thus it feels as if you're doing largely the same overall thing repeatedly, and that's standard for a genre of games generally, but usually a market isn't so heavily saturated by games of that nature being released so consistently, especially when so many are free to play, like in the Battle Royale market. And indeed, another free-to-play title is our focus today. Spellbreak is a new Battle Royale available for free on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and on PC via Windows. So does anything make Spellbreak stand out? Is it worth a look? Or is it just another Battle Royale that will slowly fade away? Well, I'm here to help you to make up your mind. This is Spellbreak. This video is brought to you by the Board of Awesome from the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. Also, the current goal for the channel is to hit 60k subscribers, currently sitting at 52.5k. So if you're new here or want to see more, hitting that subscribe button would be massively appreciated. Thank you so much. Let's get my main feelings out so you aren't waiting around, and then we'll break it all down from there. Spellbreak is tough to really criticize too much because it's free to play and it's just recently come out without too much fanfare behind it, and it has some genuinely original attempts to stand out and be different. I truly feel it has some real potential, and I commend the intricacies at play and the potentially high and complex skill curve and ceiling, but it's being let down pretty big time right now by some large and somewhat confusing flaws. So let's get into it. Spellbreak's full release across the platforms that I mentioned was on the 3rd of September, and it does have cross-play and cross-platform progression, something lacking from some other BRs at release, and it is a true asset for Spellbreak. The opportunity to have friends play together on different platforms, build up that player base, utilize higher player numbers via cross-platform play, and allowing people to play on different platforms and progress on the game regardless of which one it is at the time. Then you can also turn off cross-play if you would like. So some great options on board. Now, the main premise of playing Spellbreak is that it's a Battle Royale with spells. So it's not another shooter, and it's third person rather than first person, so think more Fortnite than Warzone for your initial kind of feelings. Although no, it's not really like Fortnite at all, and something I want to heavily praise is how deep and varied the spell aspect of the game actually is. On top of the ability to temporarily levitate or float, which is standard for all players, you can basically wield two elements, such as fire, wind, stone, etc. One you choose before you start the game and you have as you drop in, and the other you pick up via loot. The elements you pick up in the game can be switched, the one you start with can't, that one's standard for the rest of the game. Each element has two abilities. I think the game splits them into two spells and two sorceries or something, but whatever. Basically, you end up with 4 spell abilities, plus a rune ability you can pick up via loot, such as flight or invisibility. Add on top of that, upgrading these elements via loot, as well as upgrading the rune, plus upgrading your basic attributes via scrolls, and there's equipment such as belts, which in turn allow you to use armor, and there's health potions, and all my days, there's literally so much going on. Now, for some of you, this may sound way too convoluted, and I can totally understand that. I know some people really enjoyed Hyperscape, for example, due to how simplistic the loot was, but if you want a really deep and somewhat complex and varied looting experience, then Spellbreak has you covered. But it's not exactly all that's that I'm praising, as that's more of an opinion divider depending on what you prefer. No, what I'm praising is the way that the abilities and the amount of them create a really different feel for this BR. It's not as simple as carrying a couple of guns and some equipment or whatever. This is managing your mana, which is basically your ability energy. Every time you levitate or use a spell, you use up some of that mana that needs to recharge, so you can't just constantly spam your abilities. Plus, the sorceries or the larger abilities are on a cooldown as well, so there's genuine skill and timing involved. You have to choose when to do things, such as float and use your spells, which spell to use when and how they combo, because different spells do different things in conjunction. You can put out fire, you can explode toxic gas, and all sorts of stuff like that, depending on which elements you're using with or against another one. For some players, this will really connect with with them, as you're much more putting together an actual build than in many other Battle Royales. And there is friendly fire, so you can damage yourself and your teammates with your spells. So again, you can't just put them out anywhere without thinking. You have to really pick your moments and use the correct thing. This all becomes even deeper as you start to complete mastery of these elements and unlock additional passive abilities. So they really went all in with this stuff, and if you're a fan of such mechanics, this could be a real pleaser for you. But it's not all great for me where the combat is concerned. Work could be done on the impact and feedback of landing damage and specifically downing enemies. It just feels lacking to me, lacking punch and a feeling of satisfaction sometimes. And there's nothing that I've noticed other than a dinging noise to let you know you've downed the enemy. Now when there's all kind of effects going on and noises happening, it's possible to miss that and simultaneously be unable to actually see where the enemy is or was, which means you can be unsure if the enemy's there, if they got downed, if you should stop shooting, etc. In terms of the loot, it could be tweaked so it's a little more apparent what you're picking up. Perhaps this is just something I and others need to get used to with time, but currently when a big pile of loot drops, I'm kind of overwhelmed by what's what and what I need and what to prioritize and just what I'm looking at in this vast array of different things. But what I do like about the loot is, besides it being varied, it won't let you pick up something that's weaker in terms of its rarity or quality than what you already have, so there's less time picking up the wrong thing and blah 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 as you're learning what's going on. And overall anyway, these problems can be remedied in time with some tweaks, so I'm not too worried about them. But those issues aren't the main problem that I hinted at. For me, the biggest thing letting the game down is the matchmaking and scarcity of fights. The map feels pretty sizable, and yet every game I play contained less than, I think, 42 players. Now the movement abilities do allow you to get around very quickly, which can help, and perhaps the devs didn't want things to get too chaotic with 100 people on the map, firing spells and flying around and whatever. I do understand that, but I would fully support increasing the player cap per lobby by just a little bit. But anyway, worse than that is the boss. Yep, boss. This Battle Royale has bots in it. Or at least it does when you start playing. And then after that, I'm not really sure when they do or don't disappear. We'll get into why that's all kind of a big problem. So let me know in the comments if you've managed to find anything in the game about this, but I can't, about when the bots are present or not, etc. I had to go searching around the internet to find out what was going on because I was baffled. It seems the first round you play is solely against bots, without seemingly any warning that I could find, so almost everyone is winning their first match with ease. Did we win? Wait, what? Dude, what? So we won our first game without knowing that we were about to win our first game, or really feeling like we were going to win the game. And so with the game seemingly not telling you that, and nor does it tell you be following a whole load of bots in the following games, as well as a few more players being added in, it all gets a bit uncertain. I think people want to know what they're playing against and if their achievements actually are worth anything or not. Because this really bored me. It really genuinely turned me off, and I had no doubt it will other people too. With no warning it's happening, the game just feels kind of lifeless. Killing bots that do almost nothing to fight back, waiting to finally find some human players towards the end of the game usually, and this doesn't help the pacing issue. Plus it meant that I was constantly questioning if I was doing well, or taking out someone that was just worse than me, or if I was killing a bot. Not satisfying at all, and I couldn't find any option to opt out of playing bots. Again, let me know if you found something. And thus, I can't find confirmation of if or when you'll totally stop playing bots. I don't know if now I'm not playing any bots and I'm just doing well. It's just a mess. I don't really support this decision, especially when you have practice and tutorial in the game to get used to how the spells and stuff work anyway. Because I play with my mate Dame and we won like 3 of our first 4 games and then continued to place really highly for a long stretch, and it just felt weird not knowing what we were playing against and feeling like so many fights were complete non-events. Now when you face actual competent real players, it's fun. It can get hectic with so many abilities and people flying around, and it really is satisfying when you take down an enemy team. But when you play bots or against people that have the ability of bots, it just doesn't work for me. And I worry for the game because it seems like a crazy decision, especially with no warning behind it. I want to keep pushing that point. I wonder how many people just find the game boring or unsatisfying early on and quit. Let people choose if they want to play the bots or not, or at least inform us of when we'll stop playing them. Because Battle Royales don't get many chances to succeed. There's so many that are free to play. If you get turned off by one, a lot of people won't go back. If player numbers are low, if viewership is low, if PR is bad, it all works works against the game and people just feel like, well, why would I bother? A strong launch and first impression is important, because the vast majority of Battle Royales die out, while just a few big boys continue to widely be played. And yes, I'm looking at you, Firestorm, as one that just wasn't supported and completely died. So if you fix these issues in Spellbreak, I really think this game could be very fun and different, and hopefully build up a decent player base. But I think that needs to be done quickly, and then ramp up the marketing a little bit, because there's some really good stuff here. Not least the art style, which is Zelda-esque, aesthetically pleasing at least for me, and not too detailed, which means your eyes aren't going to get fatigued constantly looking for players amongst bushes and all this sort of stuff. Now I will say, I did have a few issues, like a pretty game-breaking bug at one point. I legit don't have frame. I can't pick things up either. I think my game bugged super hard. As well as a crash when I first started the game. Hopefully these are just early teething issues that can be ironed out. Now, what about Twitch viewership, which is becoming ever increasingly more important to the success of games such as Battle Royales? Well, it's had viewership as I showed on the thumbnail. I just took that from a random point. In fact, concurrent viewers have been as high as about 66k on September the 3rd, but that has dropped off by quite a lot, which I mean does happen generally. But it tends to peak at around 9 to 12 PM UK time, so as of making this video on the 6th, it is only early on in the day, and it'll rise up again. But right now it has about 4,000 people watching it. Basically it's doing solidly without too much marketing behind it seems. Not outstanding, but it is very early days and could go either way. And yes, I should add that as it's a free-to-play title, it does have in-game cosmetic microtransactions, but I'm just used to that by now, and it's either going to be an issue for you or not. It shouldn't be a surprise. I get that the developers have to make their money. If you don't want to spend, then just don't. And I think there is a battle pass coming at some point later on, I've heard, but we'll wait and see. So yeah, for me, Spellbreak is pretty cool. Offers something at least somewhat different, has some potential, absolutely won't appeal to everyone, but will really grab those that want a deep loot experience or some kind of different combat mechanic from a Battle Royale. That being said, it is still a Battle Royale, so if you can't stand them, this probably isn't going to change your mind, and it is being heavily let down right now by a few issues that could do with getting sorted out very soon. Some good PR, hype building, and marketing would go a long way towards cementing this game having a chance of going somewhere for a while, but we'll have to see. And that's my breakdown, somewhat early review, and opinions of Spellbreak, but that's not me telling you what to think. Take what I've said and draw your own conclusion, and let me know what it is in the comments below. Yes or no to Spellbreak and why, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leaving a like is massively appreciated. If you're new or want to see more, subscribing would be fantastic. All the links to my social media, including Patreon, Discord, Twitter, all of that can be found in the description and my pinned comment. And with all that said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters. So that also leads to some players saying the game is super sweaty and try-hard, with only talented FPS players able to succeed, and this is despite some mechanics that I think are fairly casual friendly. This would all seem like enough problems already, but in the interest of fully covering the story, I'll tell you that there's more.